welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Ritchie of the MHRT Network. That away, we have the real Alex Gibbons. And yes, as he says, and here we go. This is, as one would expect, going to be a very KC heavy, Super Bowl heavy, Wild Wild West show. Frankly, as it should. I don't really care if you're a fan of KC or not. They got to the dance. We're going to talk about it. It's okay, DZ. I'm right there with you. It's just in Canada, we don't have guns just because, we don't have a Second Amendment. But it is what it is. It is what it is. We're just like the UK. We'll just
don't have the right to bear.
I don't have the right to bear arms. I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie, right? It is what it is.
Hey, everyone should have a set of bear arms on their wall,
I agree. You can catch Alex's content written there over on Arrowhead Addict. You can catch other podcasts during the regular season with Coach Defense on the Lightning Fast Fantasy Podcast, and that's on the Lockdown Defense YouTube channel. We got Angela joining us today in place of Jack, who is still very much okay despite living in an area that has some smoke and all that good stuff going on. He will be joining us hopefully next week to recap the Super Bowl. But we are happy to have Angelo here. Stoked to have yet another Raiders perspective on the show here this week, just with obviously so much Raiders news actually going on in the last couple weeks here. Getting some additional, different takes and angles on it. Angelo, how are you?
I'm good, man. Living the transplant life. Post now 30 months. So far, haven't had to go back to the hospital, and just blessed to be alive, man. Hitting up with another birthday here in a couple of weeks. So
nice.
Another day alive is always a good thing. Cool, Kev. What's up, man? Nice to see you.
I agree. Glad to have you here, and glad everything is going well with the
absolutely
the Green Raiders gear and the new lease on life, as it would, rounding the corner and hitting major milestones. That's fantastic. Happy for you, and glad you're here. And of course, down that away, the one, the only DZ representing his Los Angeles. Disease. Today, Junior. Come on, we have to at least transition that to a movie quote. That's what we do on this show.
Absolutely.
So DZ here representing his Los Angeles Chargers. And DZ, we were just talking backstage, not spilling any tea or anything, but, pretty much the other three teams have had relatively boring weeks, given the lack of changes and obviously the major changes occurring for most of our teams kind of last year and the year prior. And so we'll get right into the Raiders news, guys, for those of you who are Raiders fans on the show, or for those of you just curious as to another take on what's going on there with the Las Vegas Raiders. That'll be Angelo's torch to take and carry and fill us in. But to kick things off, we are headed to another Super Bowl. This Super Bowl has yet another or a different AFC West team in it, although one could argue more of the same. And Alex, that would be your Kansas City Chiefs. And you are up against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Alex, we're going to throw over to you to unfortunately, fortunately, it depends on
the floor, huh?
Yeah,
how much time do I got? What are we in? 4 minutes in, so I got 50.
Go for it, man.
56 minutes. I'm just kidding.
Go for it, man.
I'm kidding. But yeah, unless you've been living under a rock, obviously we got my Kansas City Chiefs, crawled their way back to the Super Bowl. As if you look at, I think the most interesting stat, just kind of looking at the season as a whole and previewing things for the Super Bowl, they were in the same company as I can't remember the other team, but one was the Patriots and someone else as the only three teams in the league to not score 30 points in a regular season game. And I can assure you the other two teams we're not in the playoffs in any realm and are picking very high in this draft. So, that's kind of where I came from with that. And it's just crazy how the team and how they've won has changed as time's gone on with Mahomes. And having to restructure the roster and, retool things and kind of change your identity with how you do things offensively and defensively. And yet, they continue to be in the big game. So, that's just big picture, like cool thing right now as a Chiefs fan, and just to kind of realize, like, holy shit, this is run that they're on is just crazy. And I know it's, at some point not going to be like this. And as much hate and flack as they get, and the conspiracy theorists out there, like me as the Chiefs fan and as a football fan, just appreciate this stability that we've seen. But with that being said, like, this Super Bowl matchup against Philly down in Nolans is not going to be an easy one. So, it's I mean, obviously a rematch of Super Bowl 57, but as I've alluded to, it's not the same team on really either side of the field. Both franchises have kind of have this track record of just making excellent moves and additions to keep the stability. And I think that's also cool that we see this rematch. But they two totally different teams, two totally different ways that they go about moving the ball and defending the ball. And I think what's the most interesting in just looking at both teams' big picture, like kind of the what the Chiefs are good at offensively is to some degree what Philly is bad at defensively, and like vice versa. Like what the Chiefs are good at defensively is what Philly has been very good at offensively this year.
Yep.
And I'm just excited to kind of see those two things go head to head and see who prevails. I kind of like outlined previewing the game, sort of my keys to victory, if you will, on both sides of the ball. In total, I think the ultimate key is really whoever wins the sack battle, I think, is winning this game. And that may be a simplistic way to look at it, but we all know how productive Philly is at getting after the quarterback and the young tools that they have to do that. And the Chiefs have traditionally been pretty good at getting after the QB, but kind of had a dip in overall sack productivity this year. But in this playoff run, we've seen them get after the quarterback and create some pressure, in big moments. So that I think is the ultimate indicator of who wins this game, is who's really able to control the line of scrimmage and keep the sacks down. Like if you recall 2 years ago, like I don't try to side by side compare the two, but 2 years ago going into it, Philly I think was like one sack away, or they may have beat the 85 Bears total number for sacks in a season.
Yeah.
They were Sack City, whatever they wanted to call it.
Was that like 58 or something?
Dude, it was something I want to say it might have been higher than that, honestly, but it was ridiculous. Someone could look it up, but it was, historic numbers, right, in sacking. And then we saw Kansas City in that game give up 0 sacks. And I know Philly was bitching about the field conditions and slipping around and everything, but the Chiefs offensively in that game, and the O-line was able to take that part of Philly's game kind of out of the equation, and really looking at the games like that, that's the biggest thing that's going to need to happen again in this game. So, overarching, got to win the sack battle. But in terms of the defense, really, I tried to come up with 3 for each side, right? And defensively, I think 1, 2, and maybe even 3 are to stop Saquon Barkley, but you can't really stop Saquon Barkley. You just got to contain him. and that's something, like I said, that the Chiefs have been traditionally good at this year. Looking at their stats as a whole, like this year alone, they faced, 4 of the top 10 rushers in the regular season went against the Chiefs defense at some point. And that'd be Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving, and Hubbard with Carolina. Now, you may agree or disagree if those guys are top 10 running backs in a debate, but statistically speaking, that's where they finished. And the only running back to top 50 yards in any of those games was Hubbard, and he had 51. So,
Chuba, man.
Yeah, I mean it's like they have a good track record at stopping the run this year. But that being said, I mean Saquon is like on scorched earth mode and in kind of a realm of his own. And I don't think that they've really played a team that relies so much on his productivity to move the ball, especially with how they've been passing the ball this year. I mean, like going into the previous Super Bowl, like the Eagles were just like all around great offense with, they didn't have a Saquon Barkley, but they had a respectable running game and used a lot of RPOs and Jalen Hurts. And now it's like, really, it's just if Saquon could do whatever he wants in any game. I mean, we saw it the last they played the Commanders. Commanders took as much time as possible to drive down and get a field goal, and then boom, Saquon for 80 yards. And if that's how the start of the game goes, like if there's some big explosive Saquon play, which is a very realistic possibility, it's not going to be a good indicator, for I think how the game will go as a whole. So I mean. That's the biggest thing. Like D-line's got to, I mean, Spags, D-line, everyone really has got to be aggressive, got to maintain the line of scrimmage and continue to do what they've at least been able to do against other top running backs this year and contain them. Like I'm not going to be naive and say they're going to shut Saquon Barkley down because that's just not going to happen. But you have to contain him enough to make it a game that if Philly wins, it's because Jalen Hurts did it, and Jalen Hurts went out and earned it. and that's something that as a Chiefs fan, and I think as a Chiefs coach or player, like that's the position I want to put Philly in because, like I said, like Hurts has been banged up, at the end of this year. Like we've seen the ups and downs, ebbs and flows of their passing game, and like A.J. Brown wanting to leave and then reading the self-help book on the sideline and all those things and the inconsistencies and his receivers openly bashing him and it's almost like they've just been able to win in spite of their passing game due to Saquon Barkley and their defense being so good. So I mean
the Eagles have won in spite of Jalen Hurts is my take.
Yes, it's what I'm saying. And it's like so that's like the trickle down, right? If you can contain Saquon, then you force Philly to have to put the ball more in Jalen Hurts' hands. Yeah. And I mean that's as a Chiefs fan, that is where I want to see Philly be in. And then, again, if you're stopping Saquon, you're opening up way more possibilities for the defense as a whole, looking at Spags and how he likes to bring blitzes and when he does, because I mean, then you're dialing up opportunities for mistakes or big sacks if they have to throw more. And then just looking at, third down, that's the other interesting component too, is because like Spags runs dime, I like an atrocious amount of time on third downs. Like I'm trying to figure, I wrote it down somewhere. But yeah, he's like, I mean, ridiculous percentage of dime package in third down. So there you have Philly, who led the league in rushing attempts on third down, 115. And so it's like, if Saquon's kind of having his way, then, that's going to make third down and getting third down stops very difficult. Just looking at how Spags traditionally handles that situation, the personnel they'd have out there and the person that's likely getting the ball. And then, looking at opening up opportunities for blitzes too, like Jalen Hurts led the league this year in I think it was like it was a weird number, like 13.9% of the time he was blitzed, he took a sack, which was the most in the league among QBs. Wow. But I think, some of that's negated because you have Saquon Barkley, who like gets 175 rushing yards every game. So, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of my trickle down analysis, if you will. Like it all stems from Saquon. I understand that they're not going to be able to fully stop him, but you got to do everything that you can to contain him and make this be more of a Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown game than Saquon Barkley.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
You made a great point about the trenches. I think that's something that gets overlooked in a way. There was a stat I saw, I think it was today or yesterday on X, about the two defenses, Eagles and Chiefs pass defenses, and how I think they said the Chiefs or the Eagles had one of the easiest tests throughout the season.
Yeah.
Like, and this is what you kind of said something, putting it in Jalen Hurts' hand. I don't think the Eagles want that to come down to that at all, because the Chiefs have one of the toughest pass defenses in the league, and they're one of the best tackling defenses in the league at all three levels. So this has to be an Eagles O-line, tight end, Saquon game for them to have a chance, in my opinion. I mean, if this comes down to Jalen Hurts' hands, I think this game's signed, sealed, delivered, and it's going to be a three-peat for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Hey, knock on wood. I hope you're right, but I wholeheartedly agree. And, Philly has probably the best offensive line in the league too, which doesn't help things. So, that's
why they're
outside
able
of
to run.
Saquon's own ability, there's also a reason he looks astonishingly better than he did in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Angelo, curious as to your analysis on Alex's take there.
Oh, no. I mean, everything Alex is saying is what people are going to say to, obviously, you got to base it on what's been out there. But I think what Jeff's talking about is my hot take from the last two Raider shows I was on. And, and the Raider fans have been, either they don't really want to see it or they're respectful enough to know it's a good match. And no one really wanted to say what I said, which is, in my opinion, if the game is called fairly, and again, I got to throw that out there because it's not me. It's the national announcers starting to talk about the ref calls being so soft towards the Chiefs already. So I'm not saying it. The whole narrative of, Rich Eisen talked about it in an entire segment that, come on, man, when it's getting this ridiculous that the refs are not even trying to hide it anymore. Like, come on. So my statement was, if this Super Bowl gets called fairly, right? And I can argue that their first match wasn't exactly, again, there was at least a controversial last minute should that have been called, but whatever, right? The pass is the pass.
If I recall,
hey, hold on, time out. I was asked to speak, bro.
Yeah,
I didn't bother you. I let you go.
All right, dude. All right.
So anyway, what Alex is saying and the way he broke it down, it's a fair breakdown, guys, on the chat. It's a fair breakdown. But my hot take was, if this game gets called fairly by the refs, I believe the Eagles are going to completely crush the Chiefs. And it's not even going to be close. And it's going to be the biggest beating they've gotten all year. Because I can argue that all year, have the Chiefs won games? Yes. Have they found ways to actually somehow, whether it's a block on a field goal or a last minute this or a last minute defensive and all of that good stuff, like, that's great. That's all 100% true. But this might be the best Eagles team I have seen maybe ever, just because I'm shocked that their rookies are overplaying. Like, I didn't think the rookies were going to be that solid. The fact that Quinyon Mitchell is already a shutdown corner is crazy to me. Cooper DeJean, Jesus, man. If people knew that they were going to be able to get those two back to back like that, and this was going to be the result, and oh my gosh, how many times do I have to hear from all the Raider fans, we should have taken Jalen Carter, because Jalen Carter is that guy. He is Aaron Donald-like, and you can agree with me or disagree with me, but who's going to stop that guy, right? And this is what I mean about how, if the Bills can run on the Chiefs, if whatever, name the team, right? And they've been, thank you, Cowtown Luda. Nice to see you here tonight. Join me tomorrow, man, by the way. Yeah, Cowtown, what's he saying? If Saquon does his thing and the
basically what I said
doesn't depend on Hurts. Right. Thanks, Cowtown Luda. So anyway, my whole thing was, let's just call it on how they're both going to play. The Chiefs, let's say the Chiefs play at their peak performance, and the Eagles play at their peak performance, including Jalen Hurts finally has one of those games where he's going to throw very efficient. That run game that they run, because the O-line is so crazy strong, like it feels to me like, well, how are you going to defend? It's not so much how good Saquon is, because Saquon on his own is that guy, but I think what honestly makes him so unstoppable is that you never really know when Jalen Hurts might take off the way he can. And we all know that he can. It's not like we're sitting here pretending like Jalen Hurts can't run a 50-yarder himself for a touchdown. He can do that. So when now you're having to guess, like, how are they? So I can see a scenario in where this will definitely be Chiefs will try to play it conservative and slow them down. And the Eagles are going to be like Ohio State and just try to go for the knockout right off the bat. And it may and anytime, like they could be behind by 10 and they're not even tripping. They're like, you know what? Something's going to happen. And something usually does. And once that momentum starts going, it's like a juggernaut. So again, my hot take, Rich, was that this won't be close unless, of course, the refs get involved. It won't be a close Super Bowl without. But go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
I just like to remind everyone it's also the same person whose hot take was that the AFC West would go through Vegas. So take that with a grain of salt. And
Angelo, you know that was back pocketed for the
I was waiting.
Season
I was waiting
back.
No.
So let's call it duck and duck.
And person talking about refs and all that still holds on to Christmas 2 years ago as well. So
So I am not holding on to either of those two takes, although I do think Alex was well within his right to bring up the whole going through Vegas thing, because that was insinuating this year.
I knew that would come full circle at some point.
And I, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, that was a fair game comment. However, sorry, bud. You know I'm right.
No.
Yeah.
You guys get more on me.
You know I'm right. So I just have a few things. So the one thing with Vic Fangio as a defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, I actually think that the Fangio effect on the Eagles is perhaps undersold. So what a lot of people forget is that Vic Fangio was the Denver Broncos head coach, and basically he was hired on to basically be the defensive coordinator with the head coach title. My Denver Broncos were pretty crappy when he was our head coach, which was unfortunate for him because I think he didn't really get a fair shake. And he had John Elway as his general manager, which didn't help either. But some interesting stats from he as defensive coordinator and went up against the Chiefs. So he had approximately 20-point deficit when he went against the Chiefs the first 3 games. So he lost by an average of 20 points. That in and of itself is not particularly impressive. What is impressive, though, is as he got film, and the Chiefs are still run by Andy Reid, so the offense is, might vary slightly, but, there's some other things to kind of keep in mind. As he got more film, the next 3 games that he had against the Chiefs, in order, we lost, obviously, because we went through that stretch there, but still, the Denver Broncos were a really crappy team. We barely won 5 or 6 games the entire time in that entire stretch. But nonetheless, against the Chiefs, which were in the influx of the juggernaut phase at that point, which was from 2019 to 2021. That's when Fangio was here. The last 3 games, we only lost by 5, 13, and 4 points, comparatively to the first 3 games that we lost by 20 points plus. Now, what does that tell me? Fangio is the guy. He is no slouch. He is a legit, top tier, if not top defensive coordinator in the NFL. And once he gets the tape and film on you and has an idea of who he's going up against, he is very, very dangerous in that position as a defensive coordinator. To put that in perspective, Alex, with a really crappy Denver Broncos team, Fangio managed to lose only by 7 points, and we were basement of the NFL at that point, and that was my Denver Broncos. And I'm allowed to say that because I said it back then, and I'll say it now. So it is what it is, my man.
I would push back a bit in the fact that Mahomes, knock on wood, has not lost to Fangio yet. I don't care about the differentials of him. He's undefeated, and also Fangio was Miami's defensive coordinator last year, who the Chiefs played in the playoffs, and we all know how that went. So
yeah, to be fair, Miami was on a MASH unit during that game.
Right.
Okay.
So there's a few things to keep in mind with that. Is sure, I can agree with you that let's put it this way. I will completely flip this back around from where I'm going with this if the Super Bowl goes the exact opposite of basically what Angelo said there, because that would tell me that the combination of Mahomes and Reed have the answer today, not necessarily before, but today, as in like that would mean that Mahomes and Reed have adjusted to Fangio and are winning that battle. And if that's the case, cool. Happy to own the fact that I'm wrong with what my take is here. But my general take is Fangio, as he builds with a proper unit without, guys that are on hospital stretchers, which is what he had in Miami when he played you guys. He had tons of injuries and whatnot, and also on a really poorly run organization. I'm sorry, Miami, dumpster fire. With a properly run organization, which Philly is, whether we like to admit it or not, they are a pretty darn well run organization. Good front office, good draft picks. Just
like a top
stable.
3 GM there.
Yeah, like legit well run. The other flip side to that same argument, Alex, and this is why I think it's somewhat relevant for that, is the Chiefs this year have averaged 27.5 points a game. They have allowed opponents 21.5 points a game. Now, same stats except for the Eagles. They have averaged 35 points a game. That's a big difference between what the Chiefs have scored and what the Eagles have scored on average. And they've only allowed opponents to get 18.3 points a game.
Yeah,
and
but
so,
I mean, they schedule toughness totally different.
Look, I will concede that the schedule toughness was probably not there and may not have been there.
Those are
but
rather skewed.
Those are like that will skew the numbers to a point. But then the question is, to what extent and to what point? Keeping in mind that the Washington Commanders were on a steamroll, it seemed, in terms of the playoffs, based on how they did even in the first game there. And the Eagles just trounced them. I mean, just killed them. And so I think that that's something to make note of as well, which the defense has made, we'll call it short order of even really well-run offenses. And the Washington Commanders are, by all accounts, a well-run offense as well. And so I'm combining those kind of background stats and that background information. And I am, at this point here, both hopeful and leaning more towards a little bit of what Angelo said with that point differential combined with the Fangio effect, where I believe that this is not going to be what the Chiefs have been used to. I believe that their offense is capable of doing much more than what the Chiefs defense is used to stopping, particularly the offensive line. And I also believe that the defensive coordinator is far more talented than the vast majority of D coordinators that you guys have gone up against. I think that Fangio is just in a bit of a tier of his own a little bit in terms of the defensive mindset. Very much like, and for the record, Reed is also in a unique, rare air in terms of the offensive side. So I'm not trying to discount what Reed is capable of. I'm just saying is that when you're going against a defensive coordinator or a defensive guy that is kind of the Andy Reid, except on the defensive side of the ball in some regards, it does level the playing field out a little bit. And one more thing, and then I want to kind of hear your take on kind of what I just said there and what the other guy said as well. The Buffalo Bills, when I watched the Bills versus Chiefs, completely changed the landscape of that game when they finally realized that they needed to run the damn ball.
A little too late.
When you saw that middle section of the game there with the Bills, and you and I were texting actually on this. I'm not going to disclose all of the stuff we said in the text because that's between us. But I did say, holy crap, like this is not the same game that we were watching before, where it was kind of runaway Chiefs at that point for the first portion of the game. The Bills shifted the way that they played, went back to ball control, running, etc., and they were having big-time success. The Bills' offensive line is not the Eagles' offensive line. The Eagles' offensive line is better. And I believe, and let's also be real, Saquon is also better. Like, the Bills have a good running back, but he is no Saquon Barkley.
No one is.
Right? Like, no one is, right? Like, the dude's at a different level. And so I do wonder if a combination of the defensive prowess of the defensive coordinator, as well as we'll call it the roster talent on the offensive side, is a bit of a perfect storm in terms of clock control, ball control, time of possession, and defensive drawdown of the ability to score points on behalf of the Chiefs, which is something to kind of keep an eye on. I don't think this is going to be like a full-on beat down per se, but I do think that this game is well within the realm of possibility of potentially getting out of hand if Philly is able to continue what they've been doing this season.
Yeah.
Have the Chiefs ever in the Mahomes era been beat down?
No.
Yeah,
and I think my ultimate response to kind of everything you said, and I think it's certainly overlooked, or maybe it's just so obvious that it's not discussed. But I mean, this is what Mahomes' 5th Super Bowl that he's playing in. This is the 3rd straight one they've been in. Every single one in this 3-peat run, the opposing team has been the better team, has been the more talented roster, has had all the gaudy offensive numbers and defensive stats. And who wins at the end of the day? It's Kansas City, because they are a well-oiled, fine-tuned, almost a hybrid approach of the Patriot way, and they find ways to get things done. And so, like, I'm not going to act like it's going to be a cakewalk for them, but I mean, their track record has shown that, if they're in the game, and if they're in the game at the end of it, they're going to find a way to win. And so, I get what you're saying with the stats, and that's kind of like I was talking about with their defensive unit is crazy talented, crazy young, and almost scary because it's so young. Like, you just, like, the situation or the moment might not be too big for them either. So, it's definitely a concern of mine in regards to that stuff. But again, it's like, they have been here and they find ways to win, and they've continued to win. So until that doesn't happen and they fall flat on their face in a game, which, as DZ pointed to, that has not happened in the Mahomes era, outside of Week 18 in Denver, but we all know who was playing in that game. It wasn't any of those, the last week of the season. It
was the replacements.
Yeah, I mean, they're just always in the they're always in the game, and if you let them stick in it and stick around, they find ways to make it happen. And teams, I know I've mentioned it several times, but that's going to be the other interesting component with this being a rematch and a team that's been here and all that. Like, the teams that play KC always seem to, it's like this aura that they have are like teams are just so overly committed to like getting ahead now that they make some mistake or like make some poor coaching choice, like Buffalo, like going for all those 2-point conversions and doing the tush push when they don't really do it, and then not running the ball and then running the ball and getting away from it. It's like, is Philly offensively, and like, I mean, we know Nick Sirianni is kind of a hothead, and especially a hothead when it comes to Kansas City because he was fired after Reed came over. And, there's like the video of him when they won in Kansas City, and he's like screaming at fans saying, "See ya." Like, is he going to be so amped up in the moment that something like that happens? Like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the against the 49ers last year and against the Eagles the year before, like the opposing team was the better team and had the like star-studded roster. And, this team continuously found ways to win in those, whether you want to talk about questionable calls or
you don't have to air quote them. They were.
I mean, I do. I said, when you told me not to talk.
Sorry, but I was just gonna say the only national announcer that can't say anything about it is Tom Brady. Other than that,
Yeah.
every national
Well, I'm
winner-
talking about the last Super Bowl when like the takeaway was, well, yeah, that's a penalty, but why call it in that moment? So like, to call it a questionable call when everyone doesn't disagree that it was a penalty is a little mischaracterization, if you will.
Okay.
But like if like I like they got to do what I talked about defensively, and they got to keep Mahomes clean, which that's going to be the biggest challenge, obviously, with Brandon Graham supposedly coming back for the Super Bowl. Jalen Carter basically, is going to be the next Aaron Donald probably within the next year. Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, who all three played together in college and already had
Jordan
that.
Davis is insane.
Yeah, they're
Davis
all
is
dogs.
insane.
Literally,
dogs.
yeah,
Literally.
literally and on the field. But
Yep.
like I said, Chiefs gave up 0 sacks the last go around, but the different components are those last three I mentioned. Those guys weren't. I think Jordan Davis might have been on the team, but he was a rookie. So it's no longer Hassan Reddick and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. It's this new wave of youthful elite pass rushers, and that's what worries me. And I know I talked about it last week with them moving Joe Thuney to left tackle, which they've done the past 4 or 5 games now, and he's done pretty well. But and there hasn't been any announcement to my knowledge about where he's playing and who's playing a left tackle. But I got to think that they consider moving him back to left guard, just with Jalen Carter being in the inside. And like everyone talks about Trey Smith being a potential market-setting guard this offseason. Well, this is the game to go earn it, man. You want to be the highest paid guard,
Definitely.
you go shut down Jalen Carter. And I think that what he brings to the table is getting overlooked in that. Again, like Jalen Carter, his sack numbers haven't been that crazy, but like that's because he's kind of like Chris Jones. He's doing so much, and he's rushing quarterbacks and disrupting plays just by being around. Right. That he makes an impact in that regard. And that's going to be the thing that they're going to have to take away, or almost like Saquon, you can't really take it away, but you got to minimize it. And so, that's what I'm interested to see if they move Joe Thuney inside and start DJ Humphrey or I guess really it'd have to be DJ Humphrey. I don't think you could start the rookie or Wanye Morris at left tackle in the Super Bowl.
That's got to be the Chiefs' one weakness, I would think, from Veach is trying to draft tackles, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They cannot get a damn tackle. It's either free agency, but the interior line has always been stellar.
Yeah. To be fair though, he has not spent early draft capital on an offensive line.
You haven't had it for a long time.
I know, well, I guess Creed Humphrey was he was either late second, early third round pick, but he kind of fell. Trey Smith they got in the 6th round because of a heart condition when he was projected to go super early. And that's kind of Veach's MO with offensive linemen. He takes these uber athletic specimens that are completely raw in terms of their offensive line abilities, and he's like, let's see if it pans out. He tried Lucas Niang was the next tackle up out of TCU for 3 years, and then he never panned out, and now you got Sua Matea, and
that's what the Chargers did in the 5th round this year with Cam Hart. He didn't have the best college tape in Notre Dame, but he had crazy traits at cornerback, and it paid off. And the kid he balled out. So I think that's in those later rounds, especially after the 4th round, you just start looking for dudes with traits, and sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, they've to Veach's credit, it's great. How many of their I think I sent it to a few people, but it was a snapshot of their 2002 draft class, and every single one of the players they took from 1st round to 7th round has been a major contributor in this whole run, and has never played in anything other than a Super Bowl in their career, which is just crazy. How even the late round picks, I'm not gonna act like Najee Johnson, 7th round pick. I'm not gonna act like he's a huge contributor, but the dude sees the field in every game nonetheless.
Well, can I also shout out for your team, Alex? One of the favorite players that I have paid attention to and watched his journey, but he's done extremely well for you guys, is the Filipino kid, Nico Remigio,
Oh,
who
yeah.
you guys got as an undrafted person.
Heck of a kick
for me,
returner,
I
man.
was like, this Filipino guy can ball. I don't know why no other team is sitting there trying to get him, and then he's in that practice squad that whole time. And I'm like, damn, any one of us could have gotten this guy. What
Dude,
are you guys
undrafted
doing?
stories are the best.
Yeah.
And
They're
now
my
he's like
favorite.
he's popping off returning kicks right
I
now.
love
Like,
that.
He
I
was
love
so
that.
vital to that Bills game. I was like, Jesus, man.
And I
this
like that
guy-
you foreshadowed that, Angelo, because I was going to talk about him because, like, every Super Bowl in this run, every Super Bowl victory, there's been kind of a unsung hero or a guy that really hasn't done much all year, and he comes up huge.
Yeah.
Like, 2 years ago, Tony had the touchdown, and then he took the punt damn near back for a touchdown. And what is that? That guy's not even playing football anymore.
Right.
And you got, Sky Moore against the Eagles. They figured out they didn't know how to properly switch off an orbit motion and man coverage, and they ran, corn dog twice to get him open, and then they do the same thing with McCole Hardman last year. It's just so.
Or Rasheed Rice, right? Like,
yeah,
Rasheed Rice. Who knew that was coming?
And so, Remigo is definitely one to watch in the special teams, and I mean he's made an impact in every playoff game so far, returning the ball, and I mean it's going to have to come from every facet, as cliche as that sounds, but they're going to have to do things special teams wise too. But switching back to their defense, like my biggest fear as a Chiefs fan going into it is like this can't be a repeat of the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, and I'm sure everyone is, but in my opinion, Kansas City lost that game from their inability to protect Mahomes and keep him clean in the pocket, and he was having to run around for his life and make Derek Jeter type throws just to try to get the ball downfield. And then what did we see after that game? Completely revamped the O-line, and things are fixed. But this O-line has holes in it. Like there's major concerns with the left tackle. There's mildly major concerns with the right tackle, and potentially if they got the left tackle starting that's been starting, they're going to have their 6-man rotational guy starting at left guard, and that's concerning considering who they're going up against and what has to be done in order for this game to go in their favor, and that's going to be containing this rush, containing Jalen Carter, and giving Mahomes time to do what he does in these moments. And whether that's rushing the ball or, the death by 1,000 cuts they've been doing this year and just distributing it around, which I think is something that is going to be attacked with Vic Fangio and how people know, what he likes to play in terms of top-down zone coverage. Like that's what they're going to need to do, but they're not going to be able to do that if the left tackle, which the left tackle spot's, giving up damn near 13 sacks this year alone, and the 6-man left guard and, the Trey Smith is more worried about what money he's going to get or something like that. And they're being disruptive. Like none of that's going to flow, and it's going to be a bad time.
I'm wondering if Reed goes with like the Brady approach. I mean, not the Brady, the Belichick approach, and just like runs straight at their strength. Like, their edge. I'm not familiar with the Eagles' edges. I don't know if they're speed or power or combo or whatnot.
I mean, it's Nolan Smith's one of them, and he's like, he's very much a light. He's like 230, so he's like a speed guy.
Belichick he would run right at him. He would. That's what he would do, and I could see Reed doing the same thing. Like, okay, so your tackles aren't that strong. He'd probably send some tight end help over there, and they would run right at him and just, knock him out. So I could see that. Or they go right at Carter somehow. Hey, I don't know. Crazier things have happened, but that seems to be what Belichick did in New England. It would go after the strengths of other teams. As long as the ref check clears Mahomes.
There he is. Old John.
Yeah.
John's not lying, man. I would just say.
I guess.
I don't know, with this added scrutiny with the refs, especially becoming a national narrative, especially coming to the Super Bowl. I got a feeling the NFL wants to maintain its integrity as much as possible, especially in this game. So I expect this to be a pretty buttoned up officiating as much as it can be.
Thank you, DZ.
That's our hopes.
We'll see.
We'll see, right? But because I think every fan base is pretty freaking tired of talking about this, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want to talk about reffing anymore, but it is this, it's a major industry, it's a major business, and it's betting is definitely very much involved. And so I think we want this to go away. I don't think it ever will, but like God, what did I just blank on your name? I'm sorry, man. Angelo. What Angelo was saying is, I think we want this to be a clean officiating game, and I think they're going to do everything they can to make that possible. Because, look, I don't think they want. There's already like boycott the Super Bowl and all that stuff, and they don't want viewership to dip, dude. Like, especially as rematch.
It's not going to dip.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they got. I don't even watch. I don't listen to Kendrick Lamar or whoever it is, so I know that's the big Super Bowl. But hey, it could, right?
Yeah.
And so
because there is what DZ's saying is there is this growing narrative that is it so rigged that all work because of Taylor Swift, and I'm not saying any of it is true. I'm just saying that's the narrative that's being put out there. Is that
I know.
And when the national broadcasters are actually speaking about it, see, like, again, I'm coming from the boxing world in where we're used to the scrutiny of that guy was robbed, those judges were bad. I just watched on Saturday night a fight where the guy was clearly winning, but he wasn't the promoted guy. In the 10th round, he gets dropped. The referee stopped the fight, right? And we were like,
pretty shady like
what
that.
are you doing?
Yeah.
Now maybe, and again, I wasn't there. Maybe the guy was seriously hurt. So I can't ever take that away because in boxing you die, right? But because of that narrative, like, man, you could have just let that guy finish it out and then he would have won because there was only a minute left. But and that's what I'm saying is now the NFL is starting to turn into that where they're like, well, it's always the Chiefs and the Chiefs barely win. And when they barely win, it's because they're getting favorable calls. And it hasn't happened just once. It's happened all season. I'm talking about the narrative. The narrative is the Chiefs have been winning close, and it's because the refs keep helping them. So I agree with DZ that at a certain point in the biggest game of the year, do you really want the narrative to become, well, the Chiefs won again, but they should have called that holding on.
But that's going to be if they win, that's going to be the narrative regardless, because that's just what it is from the being tired of seeing them be successful. It's like the same way I looked at Tom Brady and the Patriots. And like, and it was, and if, I mean, that wasn't that long ago. So I'm sure we can recall, I mean, the same stuff was being said. And you also had Deflategate and, recording practices and all this other stuff that was becoming the forefront of the Patriots' success and almost the asterisk to it because people were so tired of seeing them win.
Right.
Alex, the Chiefs, like kind of what Angelo was saying, like they barely, like this year was really weird. The Chiefs on
absolutely.
offense. Do you think that was due to Rashee Rice and then Pacheco's injury and stuff?
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing that people don't, I think, really talk about is it's crazy that their record was what it was when they lost their number one receiver. They lost Hollywood Brown before the regular season even started. They lost, 1B. They lost 1B, in the second game against the Chargers. Pacheco goes down. They have to sign Kareem Hunt off the street. Their left tackle,
by the way.
Yeah, I mean, awesome. but how many other teams are going to lose pieces like that for the whole year and continue their success?
Not many.
Right.
And you would expect to see a little dip in scores and things like you would expect games to be closer. And I think it's a bigger testament that they were able to pull off all those wins. And yeah, some were riddled with some, controversy on some calls, but others were not. I mean, like
Right.
others were them just
I agree.
winning. And,
Yes.
and again, like
Yeah.
in any game, and I think in any NFL game, you could go back and look at a call that was not made and push this narrative that that's the reason this team lost, or it's rigged. And like
and Alex,
to
to
me,
to be fair, dude, none of us in this room is saying,
oh, I know,
that
I'm
sucks
giving
or
the
Chiefs
pushback. I mean,
stink or any of that. We're not saying any of that. Like, obviously, what you guys have done has been amazing, and it's unprecedented. And in fact, we may see an unprecedented thing happen this Sunday.
This weekend.
I think that
Yeah.
where me and DZ are kind of just saying is, we hope that the unprecedented thing that might happen won't be because there's this huge controversial call, and then it kind of takes away. You get the asterisk.
I mean, I hope that doesn't happen either. Yeah,
we just want to see a clean game, man.
I just hope Canada shuts the power
even
off.
in
Alex,
every game
Alex,
after this postseason. Yeah,
I see this as a pretty clear-cut thing, right? The worst thing for the Chiefs this Super Bowl is to have something like the equivalent of the Rams no call.
Oh yeah.
Right? Do you understand? You understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Like that is like, I don't care if you're a football fan. I don't care if you're a Chiefs fan. That exactly that is like what you do not want as a Chiefs fan in particular, because you want your team to go out and you want them to do the thing. You want them to overcome the thing. You want them to kind of then make history. And you just want to say, we're just built different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like that like you want nothing else from that. The only other thing that I will say that really hasn't been talked about by any of the other guys here about the Chiefs' record, you kind of hinted at it, but you didn't kind of go all the way there. Fair enough. I don't think I would if I was in your shoes either, but it is what it is. It's kind of a rarity, and I mean this because I see this as a bit of a compounded issue. Your point of winning despite having so many injuries to so many of your key players, I think that because some of those calls were in conjunction with the injury of those players is part of the other reason why the narrative is as amplified as it is. And I'm going to add on one other piece here as well. It is a statistical anomaly of the nth degree in football for a team to have so many like field goal score differential wins in a season and lose virtually none of them. Look, I'm not even going down the conspiracy route here of saying, the refs were in your back pocket, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just simply saying that when there are calls that people can see with their naked eye that ought to have been called and weren't, when people can see with their naked eye that there was calls that went in your favor that ought not have actually been called. So there was kind of both in this season, right? And even the hit on Mahomes, I totally understand that in the heat of the game, like you talked about it after it happened in that game where you had the no hit cross hit, like that exact issue, that sort of thing. One, I think it happens because Mahomes is such a competitor, so he's going to try to make those dive plays to win. So he's going to put himself in those sorts of controversial positions. That's a credit to him, by the way. That's not even a knock to him. That's a credit to him. But the flip side of that is I think that then puts additional onus on the NFL and on the league's refereeing and all the other sorts of things to ensure that if they are going to try to err on the side of calling the thing, that they are also then willing to review a potential poor call and say, yes, we actually, we actually made him, like that was a mistake. That the call in the field, totally understand why, and that's not even a knock on the refs either. Like, I'm not going to look at that reversal on the field as a fan of any other team or even as a KC fan. Well, maybe he's a KC fan because I just want the call because why wouldn't I want the team to benefit? But I think if you're being honest, no fan of any team wants a controversial call, either one that ought not have been called that was, or one that was called that ought not, potentially be the reason why you actually won the game, because then every single, thing down the line is going to compound on top of it. I just think that there's a couple elements of this particular season. I don't think this is the refs being paid off or any other crap like that. That's just people just need to stop the nonsense.
Right.
I do think that there is a little bit of Mahomes is bringing in big time numbers, and the NFL is extra vigilant when he's on the field. The Brady effect, effectively.
Yeah, that's what I was just
we
about
just
to say. It's no different than Tom Brady.
No, and I'm not even
the LeBron James effect, man.
I am not even saying that I don't understand that. I'm saying I absolutely understand that. However, I also think that as a fan base and as a more educated fan base, and frankly, I also think it's a fair comment to say as a younger fan base of the NFL now that's coming up, they all got these things, these little smartphones in their hands and in their pockets, and they're seeing what AI and Grok and all this other stuff can do in terms of, automatically figuring stuff out and identifying, a rando in a picture in like less than a second. I think that a lot of the younger generation is simply looking to the NFL and saying, like, guys, you're making like $1 trillion a year or something along those lines. Like, surely you can go knock on Elon's door and say, so the Grok thing that you just implemented, can you maybe license it to us for, maybe $100,000 a game or something like that, or $50,000 a game, and have it like review the footage in real time, or maybe work out a contract of some sort. That I think is something that the younger fan base is they understand that it's a possibility. They understand that it is not a bridge too far, and they understand that the NFL certainly has the pockets that are deep enough to do things like that to simply make the game better. And I think all of those issues compounded together are why we're getting the narrative. I think some of the elements of the narrative that we're hearing are just outright wrong. I think it's just dumb. But I do think that there are elements of it as well that I think are just completely fair game, and we just need to agree and say, yes, that's true.
I've seen like the average fan. Let's just say, I think it's fair to say all four of us are pretty diehard football fans.
Yeah.
That we look at the game in different ways than I would say the average Joe. Well, I've seen like the average fan. I've had many conversations throughout the years with just normal football fans who just root for their team, and that's as far as it goes.
Stay in their little bubble. And...
Right. And I've also heard quit bitching about the refs, and I go, okay, that's fair. But to the average fan, I don't think they realize that it only takes 1 to 2 calls to change the whole course of a game.
Right.
To change everything.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, and that's part of the magic of this NFL. It's like the magic of Disney. We've seen that. It seems more and more in these big games throughout these last, I don't know, I'll say last handful of years. It just seems like they know what buttons to push, because it just takes 1 or 2 calls. I mean, 1 call, and you all of a sudden, that momentum, you can see it just switches, and it's insane and impressive to see. If you step back, if you look at it from that 80,000 feet above kind of thing, it's so bizarre. But from an average fan, they don't catch that. They're like, why are you guys always talking about the refs? And sure, there are those people that constantly ref, and that does get old, because a lot of those calls were the right calls, but then there are those 1 or 2 where you're like, hang on, man, why is it taking you guys 7 minutes to get this call?
Yeah.
Why are we waiting 7 minutes to get a call? Who are you guys on the phone with? What's the whole deal? Like, this should be, look at it, get the effing call in, be done. 30 seconds, man, 45 seconds. Shouldn't take you 7 minutes. Call New York up or some BS. You know what I mean? But I get,
I mean, I agree with Richie, and like, obviously I don't want there to be some controversial call, because for me as a Chiefs fan, like, I want to be excited to talk about them winning. And sometimes I got to come on the show and that's like I'm in a murder trial because I'm associated with the team. And I got to defend the fact that people are pissed off about a call that they disagree with. So, I, of course, don't want that to happen, to be able to talk about, hopefully, them going on this historical run and doing what I hope they do Sunday. But, that, like I kind of said in my last moment I had the floor, like in any game, in any sporting game, in any sporting event, like you can always go look at some official, some call that was made, some call that wasn't made, or some dirty play or something the other team's doing, and use that as the reason why, whoever you were supporting didn't win. And, in today's social media climate where people are trying to have the most aggressive take to get clicks and push views and get money, like that's the stuff that's going to be everywhere, because that's the stuff people interact with. Like if someone was just tweeting like, oh, Kansas City is so good, they're on this historical run, like no one's going to do anything with that. No one's going to be clicking on it, responding to it. But if people are like, here's this video of why the NFL is rigged because of Taylor Swift and proof, and it's like, she wore this dress, Roger Goodell wore this tie, it's rigged, and people are they're gonna react with that. And so like some of it is, it's different than like when the Patriots were going through their run. It was mostly people reading Sports Illustrated, watching Sports Center, and they were just covering the game and stats and plays. And you had maybe your one show with Stephen A. Smith where they kind of talk like that. But like today, sports fans, it's like it's a debate era. Like everything has to be a debate. Everything's got to be but and there's never it's just whatever gets the most views and interactions is what's going to be pushed the most. So I mean, I think some of it is just the society we live in now, and like people trying to monetize things on social media, because ultimately, like I always say this to people when they try to tell me the NFL's rigged, like, is it really in the NFL's best interest as a multi-billion-dollar organization to rig their league and have it the center of their league be at a small Midwestern town in Missouri? Like, no. If the NFL was rigged, they were going to have the New York Giants be winning. They're going to have the New York Jets winning. They're going to have Miami Dolphins winning. Like, all these big market teams and big, like, Cowboys would be winning. Like, that, like, it just doesn't make sense to push the rigged argument. Or, but I'm not going to deny that Mahomes doesn't have that face of the league LeBron effect, I think is what you called it, Angelo. And like and it's like the same thing people said about Jordan. Like, that's a travel for anyone else, but you don't call it for that guy.
But to be, and you're absolutely right. Oh, by the way, Alex, did you get the message, the private message from Rich? Check it out.
But
to be fair, hey, Sharif's here. Nice to see you, Sharif. To be fair, again,
hello, Sharif.
The difference between like the Jordan effect is that Jordan gets credited a lot for the fact that he played in an NBA in where roughness and getting hammered and getting hit. And I think it's not an accident that Tom Brady is putting out, literal videos of him getting blasted on a Pro Bowl game, because he's basically already, that's his way of sharing.
This
Look, it's tough for me. It's tough for me, your stomach, but it is a new era. Like I know exactly what you're saying. Like it's so fast how it switched. It seemed like it switched like overnight.
I always say that I feel like there's always multiple accounts that tweet it, but it's like CBS's NFL Sunday intro from like 75, and the whole it's like a 1 minute montage of people just like literally getting concussed. And I always see that and I'm like, man, like you don't see that in today's in the promo stuff they do. Like you don't see the big Troy Polamalu hit on people because the game's trying not to push that, right? Like it was whenever concussion and all that stuff came out, and there was this whole hoopla about the game being safe, and that somehow got really overly quieted. And then it's just like none of that, like it's more about the big explosive offensive play than any sort of big collision now.
Everybody had
Right.
alligator arms back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everybody was like, "Ah, just kidding. I'm not catching that."
Right.
Now it's like they're going all out for
One-handed,
it.
And then one a PI,
one-handed.
you know?
Like they're going, like literally, we wouldn't have seen back in those days, DZ, somebody attempting to hurl over people. And have
No.
you noticed that this year it's been
Everybody's
an
doing it.
unprecedented record year of everybody trying to hurl
Saquon did
someone?
it backwards.
You
I mean,
know,
hell.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's because you don't feel like if you do get blasted there, or it looks like you get blasted, they're gonna call it a personal foul, 15 yards. And
So
Yeah.
like on defense back in the day, like the heroes were always used to be the linebackers. The middle linebackers were like the faces of those defenses. Now in today's NFL, they're the lowest paid.
Yeah,
Almost
it's the D
on,
lineman.
well, the running
Yeah.
back's the lowest paid, right? Am
well, no, I
wrong
mean on the defense.
Oh yeah, on the defense. Yeah.
Linebackers are not the stars they were because it's now it's a different style.
It's a passing.
It's a passing league now, which I don't know, maybe if we bitch enough, we can get
Well,
back to
and also DZ, just again, like you can't get away from the pictures and the images we've seen this year, right? So you take, I'm just going to use two examples. On a nationally televised game, we watched on an end zone Sam Darnold get literally grabbed by the mask with the referee staring right at it. No call.
Nothing.
It
Yeah.
affected the game. And then within the same week, you'll see a more favorable call for Patrick Mahomes. And it's not necessarily that Patrick Mahomes isn't great, because all of us have admitted that kid is different. He is the man. And any one of us would want to have him. But then the second one is, I literally watched Joe Burrow get manhandled and face masked, no call on either thing. It affected the game. And one of the reasons why I like Joe Burrow is he just got up like, that's just how you play football.
Yeah.
well, and that's
just move forward.
that's like that's kind of like my bones to pick with my QB Justin. He doesn't say anything. He's just like he gets up and I'm like, we're always like, dude, say something, man. Like, say something, because we'd like this penalty. We'd love to get a roughing the passer penalty, but it doesn't happen. So there's certain players that just they're different, and some know how to play the game. It's literally playing the game, and that's Patrick Mahomes. He knows what he's doing, man. The guy knows how
to flop better than anybody, dude.
Well, he knows how to win. Like,
he knows how to use the rules.
Alex, I'm not trying to be rude, man. I'm just
I know,
saying,
yeah. He knows how to use the rules.
Film that it's a technique that he uses where he's running towards the line. He'll
stops.
purposely slow down so that he'll get touched, and then he flops like he just got hit by freaking Mike Singletary. You know what I mean? Like, instead of like, and you know what? LeBron does the same thing. So
so does Josh Allen. Like, so do other QBs. Like they're using the rules. They're using the rules to their advantage, and that's why I know we've talked about. I think it was last week or the week before, but like. Obviously at one point in time, flopping was a huge problem in the NBA, and then they made a no flop. They made a flopping foul. That's at some point I see that happening with how QBs play. Like, obviously, it all stemmed from, in my opinion, when Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone or something. He was out for the whole year, like the first game, and then it was like, boom, next year you can't land on the quarterback anymore. And then so we saw the NFL just take this uber aggressive shift to protect the QB, and now I think as time goes on, we see that get fine tuned to where some of that stuff will be a penalty on the offense, and I don't disagree with that. Like,
I think the next iteration of it that we've been hearing, and DC, you'll probably agree with this, that I think we're about to see that whole, if a quarterback does start to run, that slide thing starting to be more like, well, that's not we're not going to call that personal foul anymore because you were kind of like
my concern is with
you.
And I disagree with this, or I agree with you is what I'm saying.
My concern is like why I don't see that it's going to change is just with the players coming up, just how they're being trained and how they're being
and you got
raised.
Shador.
Like, I just think this is just going to it's gonna get way worse before it gets better, in my opinion. And I think it's like they're just I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
if you kind of catch my drift, I don't see these future generations coming up. They're gonna want to go back to the golden
No.
age of the NFL. I mean, I just want to take it back to like not like just the mid 2000s, like maybe the teens.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be fun.
that was the ball
Like
I
I
liked.
said, dude, it all changed after Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And they made
Yeah.
the penalty of like you can't put all your weight on a quarterback. Like
Right.
and then it snowballed from there. Like
Yes,
Right.
it did.
Right.
and the sad thing too, like you said, DZ, I think with the generations coming up, like it's not going to change because I mean, hell, now you got kids that like they're just play flag football. Like they
Right.
don't. There's this big emphasis on non-contact. Like when I grew up, like I played tackle football, full blown tackle football
Yeah, same.
from first grade, all the way to 2016, my last year in college. So like 16
Right.
years of tackle
I
football.
started in
Never an issue.
4th grade, but yeah.
No
Right.
one's
I mean,
worried
I'm-
about anything.
Like I'm
And
really
now-
worried about like offensive line play because
Yeah.
because what these guys are doing, they're going to passing camps and they're doing flag football and they're doing all that stuff. What are your linemen doing? They're just going to go to line camps and just block
And then-
against each other.
And then you
Like-
see the one-on-ones where it's like that's a shitty drill as it is for no lineman, and they're doing it without pads, and then you got the
Yeah.
D lineman doing all this, and it's like, well, what do you expect that offensive lineman to do? Like, he can't use anything. Yeah, it's
Right.
just the state of it. It doesn't look good for getting back to the contact sense of things. But
Yeah.
that is.
And then this
we
is
did
going to
it
go
again, man.
international. They want to have another team going into Europe or whatever. And we all know how the Europeans, I mean, other than rugby, like for the most part, well, I'm not going to
soccer is
bash.
pretty aggressive.
Yeah, but that's where flopping originated from.
That's
I mean,
true.
let's be fair.
That's
I mean,
true.
they're like the most
They're masters of
actors.
it.
That's
Right.
the component of it. But
Hey,
yeah.
Alec, before we go on to the next segment, can I just break some news because it all just happened while
Jimmy
you were
Butler?
doing your the Jimmy
To the
Butler,
Warriors,
So Jimmy Butler is now going to my Warriors, and the reason why they
and agreed to a new tier extension.
Yeah, he signed a 2-year, $121 million extension. And then the trade is Jimmy Butler goes to the Warriors, and the Warriors give up Andrew Wiggins, Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Anderson, and a protected first-round pick.
So I'm not an NBA guy.
We'll see.
But I'm not an NBA guy, but I kind of been hearing and catching the drift of what happened between the Mavs and the
the
Lakers.
Luka Doncic. Yeah.
That shit does not make any sense to me.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
pretty
it's
much
crazy.
You can't.
what
You
what that
honestly,
was.
DZ, can't even do it in the game called NBA 2K.
Without
Because
forced
people have
trades.
tried and it
Yeah.
gets blocked. It's like you can't do this. This
So
is ridiculous.
I think what that was is owners giving a big middle finger to agents and players.
Yeah.
I think that's owners
see that.
saying, "Screw you guys, we're
And
going to
they
do this."
didn't want to
But
pay him. They just didn't want to pay him.
you can't tell me that other teams wouldn't have gone way above and beyond to get Luka.
right.
More
Well,
so.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the AD guy. Look, I said, I'm not a huge NBA guy, but I'm a sports dude, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this makes absolute zero
Well,
freaking sense.
Well, DZ, let
Yeah.
me just say this too: is there is a growing narrative that we all understand, which is the NFL has been taking so much of the American
limelight.
media market that
Well, they even took
controversy
Christmas
sells,
Day.
right? So this was such a controversial trade that then everyone
They
across the
needed it.
board in all sports just started talking about the NBA.
That's
It
that's
happened
definitely
right
yeah.
before all these other trades are now happening, which there's been some other big trades after that one trade. But now you're paying attention to what those trades are. So for
Sure.
example, this Jimmy Butler one, not a lot of people would have paid attention to it during Super Bowl week, but because you heard about the Luka Doncic one, now
Yeah.
you're like,
Wow.
what else crazy is gonna happen?
Right.
There's always like it's weird in the NBA. There's always these big like crazy trades involving big names. Like I feel like at least once a year. Like I mean, hell, for most of the day it was Kevin Durant was going to be a Warrior until he
Right.
said, "I'm not
Yes.
doing that."
Yeah.
Like so,
I mean,
it
I'm
just-
just saying, it's like it's to the Lakers though, right? Like the biggest, second biggest fan base maybe in the NBA, or the biggest, and it's like there are smaller teams that would have given up massive amounts to get him.
Of picks,
but the
though.
fact
See,
that
I
it was-
think Dallas
No,
thought
or
we're
so
getting
what about
Anthony
like
Davis.
the Pelicans? They would have gave up Zion probably to get him,
Yeah,
and a bunch of other
But
stuff.
Zion brings the same concerns that Luka did, or allegedly
Out
did,
of
like
shape.
injury issues, out of shape. Do you really
Yeah.
want to pay this guy the super max money when he
Right.
doesn't play defense?
Yeah.
Or hey, let's send him to the Lakers, and maybe it works for them, maybe it not. But we get Anthony Davis, and we can still say competitive. Like,
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
DZ, honestly, again, man, you never really know, right? Like with
Yeah.
any
Sure.
trades, okay?
Sure.
So, for example, AD, and again, Anthony Davis doesn't suck. He's won the
No.
world championship.
No, isn't he like considered
when
one of the
came out
best two-way
college,
players?
when Anthony Davis came out of
Yeah.
Kentucky, everybody was
he's the
saying
legit.
this is the guy that's going to change the game.
Right.
He is. He's
And
like
he did.
he was.
He's the
originally
unibrow guy,
how
right?
Everybody
Yeah.
talks about.
He's like an uberly
yeah.
athletic big man.
Yeah,
He's like
he
the
was
first one, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like how, if you hear about the French guy, Wembanyama, right?
Yeah.
Because he's freaky.
That's AD.
Anthony Davis was the original Wembanyama. Where they're
Well,
like,
now I'm
how
hearing
is
that
this-
the Lakers don't have any big guys.
Well, I mean, again, and I agree with you, DZ, when you said because the way the trade happened is no one knew it, including Danny Ainge, who helped the trade. And Danny Ainge obviously hates the Lakers, right? He didn't even know the trade was to help the Lakers. He thought he was just doing a deal with the Mavs. And when the trade got pushed through, he found out like 30 minutes beforehand, and he couldn't stop it anymore. So like it, just like you said, DZ, this could have been the big FU from the owners going.
That's what it looks like to me.
Well, and I think part of it too was, they were trying, like you said, they were trying to say F you to Luka and probably his agent, and didn't want to start rumblings for him to know. Just wanted to be like, no, hey, you can't come on the team playing because you're not on the team anymore. Go to LA, But
well, now LA has got their next LeBron's going to be gone soon, and he'll be their next dude.
No, I mean, crazy trade for LA, really.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. And the other thing I was gonna say too, DZ, before we go into the next segment of the Raider stuff was that it's not so I'm in the boxing and in the fight world, right?
Right.
And it's not uncommon again when it's a Super Bowl week to put things out
break
there
news and stuff
to break news, right?
Yeah.
So the big breaking news for boxing in our world this week that everybody's talking about is Terrence Crawford, who is a 154-pound fighter, is going to move up 2 weight classes.
That's nuts.
To go fight Canelo Alvarez, who is arguably pound for pound the best. And here's the kicker. And here's the kicker of how they got it so that the NFL would sort of kind of talk about it is the fight's happening in September at Allegiant Stadium.
So you know what I heard about? I'm a big fan of Steve Kim. I don't know if you know who Steve Kim is.
I know exactly who Steve Kim is. So I didn't even know you paid attention to boxing, but okay.
No, I don't pay attention to boxing that much, but I'm a big fan of Steve Kim, and he's a big boxing guy. He's a diehard Miami, Canes.
No, but I know exactly Steve Kim because when he was just starting out, he was hitting the bag at Wildcard Gym when I was helping coach over there. So I know exactly.
Oh, but he doesn't do that anymore, right? He's just
no, Steve Kim's still a reporter.
Yeah, he's just a reporter, but but he was talking about that fight and how it's going to be an Allegiant and it's going to be freaking like Canelo Alvarez in Vegas. I mean, oh my God.
He always sells out. Now
he's going to,
now DZ, I'm really going to blow your mind. That's being talked about. But last night I was on just to give you an example of how passionate like the boxing community is. I was on a boxing chat, BFTB boxing last night. He's like you guys, right? He's doing his channel, right? And I didn't even realize I was on it for 6 hours, and he had been on it for 12, and the whole thing got like 5,000 views. And all we were really talking about was, is Canelo Crawford really good for boxing, right? And then all these people from all over the world were just like going to the chat. Like the chat averaged about 200 the whole way through. Sometimes it got up to like 350. Sometimes it went a little lower, but for pretty much right. And again, like the big one that was said last night, but we don't know, but a lot of people are really tracking to say it's going to happen, is Canelo supposedly is going to be fighting Jake Paul on
Yeah.
Cinco de Mayo
Yeah,
Jesus
right.
here in
Christ,
Las
bro.
Vegas.
You lost
Which
me
is
with that
just-
last part.
If so, then
Boom.
that's terrible for boxing.
That's
And
but,
it
just-
is.
you know,
and it
that's
dog
is,
for
shit.
that's
And it
for a
is
totally
horrible.
different
that guy
episode.
is a stain on boxing.
Yeah,
He's a
Right.
stain.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That is
No,
just,
guys,
you want to keep
We
that.
gotta transition
Yes,
back
Okay.
to
please.
football.
Go
Sorry.
ahead,
As
buddy.
much as I love talking about sports and
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
don't
sorry, Alex.
disagree.
Go ahead.
You know,
I'm gonna
we
go
are
drink
getting a
bleach.
little yeah, we are getting a little off the path. And we do have some other things to talk about other than the Super Bowl. But before we moved on, I thought it'd be good for all of us to go around and give, our predictions after we've talked about
The
kind of
Super
our
Bowl?
preview. Yes.
Super
So
Bowl.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
go last. We'll start with you, Angelo, since you had
I
the most
believe
abrasive
again,
take.
right now the odds are plus 105 for the Eagles.
It's a
I'll
toss
try
up,
to
right?
get a bet in there, but I honestly believe that the Eagles will destroy the Chiefs. So my prediction is going to be 37 Eagles, 25 Chiefs, but it won't even feel that close.
Fair enough.
Wait, what'd you 37 what?
Eagles
37,
and
25.
25 Chiefs, and it won't even feel
Okay.
that close.
I think this game, and to me, comes down to, and it's so weird to say this because the Eagles have won in spite of Jalen Hurts. Like, I honestly feel like the Eagles could put many other QBs on that team and still have success. Now, if you took Mahomes off the Chiefs, I don't think that's the case. I think there's only maybe 5 QBs that maybe can go to the Chiefs and kind of still have that same success. I think everybody knows this is going to be expects the running in the trenches. You've got Pacheco and Hunt on one side. You have Barkley on the other with Hurts who can do that. Hey, and Mahomes as well. I think this comes down to the passing, and that's weird to say that because I think the Eagles have been taken over by Saquon, but you've got AJ Brown and Devonta Smith over there, and
Goddard.
Goddard, but this is Spags, man. He's gonna have that Chiefs defense so fucking dialed up, man. Like they are no joke, especially when it comes to the playoffs. And I'm not saying the Eagles are. Oh my god, man. I'm gonna be in misery. I think the Chiefs three-peat. I think they win their 3rd Super Bowl in a row, and I think it's by 6. I think they win by 6. And
Wow. You think it's going to be low scoring?
no, I think it's going to be like 31-20, like 31-24, something like that, or
That's funny.
something is some in that range, something like that. I think we're going to see the Chiefs just open it up. I think yeah. But I look with Angelo saying about the Eagles is I could see it going away. I just don't see one team or the other getting their breaks beat off of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and I understand what you're saying, DZ. The reason why I'm pushing that hot take narrative so much is unless any one of you guys want to tell me that somebody will be able to catch up to Saquon when he breaks that line,
No,
he feels like an
yeah.
Ashton Genty to me. And I feel like that line on that first 10 yards is really hard to beat.
Sure,
So,
you're 100% correct because he is just like boom. But the thing is the Chiefs 3 levels. They have probably the best defense in the league at tackling. So speed, you got to make a great point because Saquon's a beast.
Yeah.
But they have at all 3 levels, they are probably the most sound at
getting
right. Guys.
No, and DZ, you're right, and the reason why I felt like this is going to be one of those type of matches or a fight is let's say you're the Chiefs defense and you decide to play it conservative. Then basically the Eagles are going to pick you apart like a boxer, just jabbing at you and jabbing at you 10 yards at a time to score, right? So I think that the first series is going to be so important in the game when it starts, because if it looks like the Chiefs wasn't able to stop them, the difference is normally the Chiefs can adjust. But the Eagles are the type of team who's going to be like, now let's punch him in the mouth again.
Sure.
Now
Yeah,
let's
I can
punch
see
him in
that,
the mouth again. And that's why I feel like it could be possibly, and again, I know I'm going to sound crazy for all of you guys who are like Chiefs fans who are listening to Alex on this show. So whatever, man. I'm just telling you that it's not out of the realm of possibility because I am so shocked at how good the Eagles defense actually is. And it does take the Chiefs like some momentum to get going. They're not like a fast starter when it comes to offense. I would not be shocked if the halftime of the Super Bowl, when we're watching Kendrick Lamar, is 21 Eagles, 0 or 3 Chiefs, and everybody's sitting there trying to celebrate already instead of like, hold on, man. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Which is why I feel like the Chiefs are going to make a run in the second half, and they'll get to kind of like a little momentum run, which is what they always do. And somehow the Eagles are going to like just make it that over the line. So my 37-25 prediction is it won't feel that close. You know, it won't feel that close.
That's fair. It's and I will remind you, they were down pretty decent to the Eagles at halftime the last Super Bowl. So,
and you're right.
Anything could happen with Mahomes.
But they didn't have Saquon.
But yeah, no, they did not. Like I said, they're totally different teams on both sides of the coin. But it's funny that you said 31-24 Chiefs, DZ, because I actually texted Richie to ask for his score, and he said 31-24 Eagles. So for our viewers, and Richie had to step away, everyone, if you were wondering where he is at. But that is his prediction. So right now we have 2 for the Eagles, 1 for the Chiefs. With mine pending,
Eagles, right? 3 for the. Oh no, yeah, that's right.
Oh, DZ with the Chiefs, and as I'm sure as you guys can probably guess, I am going to predict the Kansas City Chiefs to finish this run that they're on and be the first team to three-peat. I do think it's going to be a close game. I look at the score and my prediction probably pretty close to the Eagles or the Bills game. And that it was a little more high scoring than we've seen out of this Chiefs offense, but very much a back and forth game. So my final prediction is 31 Chiefs, 28 Eagles.
I mean, you're giving Andy Reid 2 weeks to prepare for this.
We'll see. I mean,
so I just have learned to not bet on Andy Reid and Spags. Like I'm not betting on this game, but I'm just like I'm not betting against these guys.
Spags is amazing. Spags is amazing. Yeah,
it's gonna be. It's gonna be.
So is the Eagles.
I really like the Eagles. I really like the players they have on that team. But how many times have we seen? Kind of like what Alex was alluding to earlier in the show. How many teams have we seen the Chiefs go against that were like on paper? Well. Not the Eagles are good on paper and off paper, but like they were loaded and the Chiefs just end up winning. So I'm just like,
how many games have you seen or Super Bowls have you seen in where 2 of the key contributors of a team in like the Eagles, the Super Bowl happens to also be their birthday, and that's Saquon Barkley and Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
So also real quick, I think that. And should I change my prediction because I think the Eagles are 4-0 on that type of turf.
That's right. They are.
And they also beat the Patriots when they were, going for the same type of run.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Look, dude, maybe the football guys don't want you guys to
right.
I'm not going to hide any facts, okay?
Just like there hasn't been an undefeated team to win the Super Bowl yet.
Yeah,
maybe the football gods don't want a 3-peat. It's just like those.
Yeah. Can you imagine too, like historically speaking, that if the Eagles do win, their claim to fame is going to be, well, we're the team that
took down Tom Brady. We took down Pat Mahomes. It's I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be very similar to the Bills game and be that back and forth. Angelo, you may think it's going to be a huge blowout, but I think regardless of who wins, it's going to be by a close margin.
Look, dude, and Pacheco's no slouch himself.
And he's been due to pop since coming back, quite literally.
I'm hoping he has a good game, actually. I want to see how well he does against that defense.
Yeah, you and me both, man. But as much as I would love to continue talking about the Chiefs and the Super Bowl and just suck up all the airtime on only that topic, this is an AFC West show. We do actually talk about other teams. Just so happens there's only one game left and one of them's in it. But there has been outside of the Super Bowl some other relevant, exciting news for at least one team in the AFC West.
Yeah.
As far as we'll check in with our Chargers correspondent first, just because I'm pretty sure it's relatively quiet, but we will at least get confirmation that there's really nothing coming out of LA right now for the Chargers Nation. Is that right?
Insert cricket sound here.
Church. And as Richie is not here, and I don't aggressively follow the Denver Broncos,
the only news from the Denver Broncos, it has to do with the Raiders, actually.
Yeah. And I suppose with everyone, there's obviously the ongoing rumors of Myles Garrett wanting out, and where's that going to go?
Right.
Obviously every team's going to want him. Hell, I saw today, every of those burner accounts like Chiefs are second co-favorite to get Myles Garrett. I'm like, how are you a co-favorite?
That's that's the NBA stuff.
Yeah. I could see it. Yeah,
I can see that too. I could see the Chiefs going, "Oh, you want X? Sure, we'll give it to you right now." I could.
Yeah. If I was the Browns, I'd be like, "I don't want those high ass picks. No thanks, dude."
Yeah, I mean it'll be crazy. I mean, I hope we get to see some more NBA-esque, roster moves and trades and things, but
hey, there actually is some Chargers news that has to do with our teams is I don't know if Pete Carroll and Harbaugh buried the hatchet, and I don't
think they did, bro. That's one of the
things. Check this out. Pete Carroll called Jim up. Pete Carroll called Jim up to talk and ask about good hires, like who does he think they should hire. And that was all on the Dan whatchamacallit show. What's his name?
Patrick?
Dan.
Oh, Dan Patrick?
Yeah.
Dan Patrick show?
Yeah, Harbaugh was on there, and apparently him and Pete were talking and just a few days ago, and because Dan was like asking Jim about it, because everybody knows we're gonna have a primetime game. There's gonna be a primetime game.
Oh, absolutely, dude.
Yeah.
You know that Stanford.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're gonna.
They're gonna hype that up. So, I guess he called Jim to be like talk about hires, which is weird because it's a division rival. But they also, and then Jim's kind of response, and I'm butchering this, but he's like, it's gonna, like, shit's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna be exciting pretty much between our teams because he knows the level that Pete Carroll brings. So
right.
Yeah.
I think that and again, I guess we're in the Raider portion of this now, right?
Yes,
Alex?
we are.
Okay. So my whole take about it is, I believe that the Josh McDaniels thing, when it was all blowing up in all of our faces, AP at that time did a really good job. And one of the best things that AP really did a good job of is bringing the Raider mystique identity back, because there's been so much of it luring away, right? Like the Patriot way, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of that narrative is that, Mark Davis, who has admitted that he doesn't know football anywhere near what his father did, and he really wants people around him that can help. So the AP decision was like, hey, I'm doing what the fans wanted me to do. And like I said, like, I wasn't one of the people that was like, fire AP. I'm like, no, that's not fair. I asked for him to be a coach. I'd like for him to play out his contract. He's got one more year, right? I think that the new thing, new LA.
Because I said, D said, what news is coming out of LA?
Okay. All right. So
touche, John.
So thanks, John Leon. But again, like, I think that narrative of the fans asked for something, Mark Davis gave it to us, right? Mm-hmm. It didn't work, and I'm not necessarily even going to say, well, that was necessarily AP's fault. Is it difficult to be a head coach in the NFL? 100%. I mean, fucking Bill Belichick got fired. You know what I'm saying? Like, so is it difficult? Yes. Was this AP's first year? Antonio Pierce had his first year? Yeah. Does he know how to hold a locker room strong? Antonio Pierce 100% knows how to hold a locker room strong. And if there was a way to keep him the same way we kept Patrick Graham, we kept Robbie Leonard. I mean, AP's that type of person, but I think that it's like he flew too close to the sun, like Icarus, dude, and then he had to drop, right? I wish all the best for AP. I think the biggest difference, though, guys, Alex, and I'm going to say this, is Tom Brady becoming an owner. That's something that's been on the works for like the last 2.5-3 years anyways. And when it finally happened, it freed Mark Davis to basically say to Tom, you're in charge, right? Whatever move you do, I will back it. So now this becomes Raider Nation having to trust the greatest quarterback, maybe the greatest competitor in NFL history, right? In Tom Brady. And for him, he needed to make a bang move on these are the moves we're going to make. And it's Tom Brady and Silver Lake and the whole blah, blah, blah. So yes, credit to the ownership group, but Tom Brady's the name here. So I'm going to say it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady calls his buddy John Spytek from college, who, from all the reports we've read and from what was being said, Spytek was kind of like this whiz kid. He was kind of like an Eric Spoelstra for the NBA.
Wait, Spytek was at Michigan?
He was a Michigan guy.
Oh, wow.
Him and Brady. Him and Brady were together in Michigan. So the Michigan man brings in another Michigan man, the young GM, who, again, if I'm going off of just recent activity, the fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers look that good, and the fact that John Spytek was the one in charge of that, and the fact that 44 of the players that he drafted somehow, some way, are all contributing starters on this year's squad gives me confidence. Like,
yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, man, this guy might be young, but shit, he's been around the NFL for so long, and he's been tutored and mentored by all these other people, and he's such a great listener that maybe he has something that can really help us. And if we're thinking again future-wise, I don't believe this is a guy that's going to get fired next year.
No.
I think he's actually going to get his 5 years. He's going to get to play out his contract.
That was probably the smartest move the Raiders did, is getting rid of Tom after that year.
That was get you Bowers and move on.
Right.
Thank you. See you later.
But
thanks for Bowers and JPJ. See you.
Yeah. But and again, nothing against Tom Telesco, because thank you for giving us DJ Glaze on the 3rd round. Thank you for getting us DeCamarion Richardson in the 4th round. Like, sure, man, great. Thank you. But, moving on from that, Tom Brady isn't like a hired president. He's an owner. So he's not going to get fired from the Raiders. He owns the team. So he gets to be Jerry Jones now. Mm-hmm. And unlike Jerry Jones, who just wants to make bad moves to keep his team relevant, Tom Brady's like, look, man, I'm not used to losing. That's not how I roll. I mean, I went to Tampa Bay with my boy Spytek, and we won the Super Bowl because my boy Spytek made some good moves.
That was an all-star team.
Yeah. So long-term for us to have one of the youngest GMs be our GM of the future, that's a bright thing for us. Okay.
Yes.
Right now, the whole Ben Johnson narrative, I again, this might be a hot take, but probably not that hot of a take. I'm glad we didn't hire him, because I am tired of us taking a chance on someone who's never even been a head coach before.
That's a good point that you made. That's a great point that you guys brought up, because it's kind of like they were talking about that Ben Johnson, I think 2 years ago, coming out, and the Charger fans were like, they want Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson. And he was this up and coming. And I'm glad they went a different route, because you need to have a culture, I believe, before you can move on to these
establishment.
Yeah. Right. And Chargers didn't have a culture. It was dying, like in LA.
Yeah.
They brought in Jim.
Went in and put the Michigan culture in there, basically.
Flip the switch. And I think that's what Pete's gonna do in Vegas, is bring the culture there.
Ben Johnson could have just been the Chargers, like the offensive version of Brandon Staley, or just another version of AP or McDaniels, or
Right.
It's still a gamble with Ben too, as a head coach. Nobody
Yeah.
knows in Chicago if he's going to be great.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know,
let me say, DZ, let me say this. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Johnson does do well in Chicago, mainly because he knows everybody there. That's where he's been this whole
in
time.
division, interdivision,
Yeah, and he already stole 2 of the coaches from Detroit to come with him. So it's
Oh.
all information gathering and the whole bit, right? So
Dude.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's not like Caleb Williams sucked, guys. You know, Caleb Williams
He came on.
definitely
He
doesn't
came on
suck.
towards the end of the year. He had some good games.
Yeah. So I'm sure he'll do well. I'm just saying that given our current scenario, the Raiders, you put Ben Johnson there, it would have exploded worse than Josh McDaniels. And then he would have lost his confidence and all of that. So whether it is that it was Ben Johnson who didn't want to come to the Raiders or vice versa, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because Tom Brady and along with Mark Davis made the smart move. Let's bring a grown-up in the room. How about we do that? You know, let's bring a grown-up. In fact, he's such a grown-up, he's older than everyone. We now have the oldest coach. Like, one of the memes that I saw was from the Adam Sandler movie where they were like, you know, well, he has a 5-year plan. And Adam Sandler goes, what's that?
Die.
Not die?
Yeah, don't die. Yeah.
And that's
Big
the
Daddy.
thing is, by the time September starts,
That's hilarious.
Pete Carroll is going to be 74. He has a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th. So let's say he plays out all 4. He's going to be 78, man. 78. That's older than Marv Levy.
Yeah.
All right. Like 78.
He can run for president.
See, I look as the Pete Carroll hire as you know, establishing, like, getting that sense of security, establishing that championship culture, and ultimately, because didn't he bring like his top assistant with him?
So
that's key.
that, right?
That's
key. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about it all. So here's what
Pete
Carroll does, right? Right off the bat, he gets everyone in the Raider press conference like laughing and energetic and laughing and energetic and having a good time, right? And Marshawn Lynch, guys, the fact that Marshawn Lynch didn't have to be at that press conference to show up kind of just shows you, like, and Sherman's talking about Pete Carroll. So it's kind of, it brings it forward. We can't deny Pete Carroll's USC run. We can't deny his run with the Seahawks. So if you're a Raider fan, you're sitting there going, well, I may not have liked the move, but I don't hate it. Right? But
that was the best option. Especially, that was
like the diehard
option.
Fans are like, this is a great move. Okay?
I mean, Vrabel, you could have said Vrabel or him.
Because Vrabel was already gone. So
no, I'm saying, like, for the hiring cycle to come to the Raiders.
Right.
Those would have been the 2 best.
But I think everybody already knew that when Vrabel got that Ring of Honor thing happen, that he was going to be the coach anyway. Yeah. So this is the other thing too, right? This is the other thing I'll say about this is you have to remember that Tom Brady right now, he's hitting the ground running, because Tom Brady, if this thing works, and let's say best case scenario, DZ, best case scenario, Pete Carroll steps in, John Spytek comes in, and just like your team, we're in the playoffs in the first year. That's the best case scenario here, right?
Yeah.
Right away, man, we get into playoffs this season, we're going to end up being in the playoffs for the next 3 to 4 because of Pete Carroll. Now the momentum's going. And that's our best case scenario. Our worst case scenario, because none of it, I mean, as delusional as some Raider fans could be, dude, we're not winning the Super Bowl next year. That's not going to happen, or this coming season. So that's what I'm saying is best case scenario, we make it to the playoffs. Worst case scenario, we're extremely competitive, and maybe we split the division with you guys.
We all
go 1-1,
swept in the division.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of getting swept, we go 1-1. We barely make it to the playoffs, but everyone can see the vision. Everyone can see the vision of what's going on, right? So what does Pete Carroll want to do? Well, let me tell you, Alex, Pete Carroll's like, you know what would be nice is if I got the Legion of Boom back. You know what would be really cool is if I surrounded Max Crosby, because Max Crosby is only 27 years old and has only played in the 6th year. And now I'm going to have a version of Max Crosby that no one's ever had before. I'm not going to have the version of Max Crosby that was drinking and then needed to become sober. I'm not going to have the version of Max Crosby that plays injured on every game. I'm going to have a uninjured, truly revitalized, going to become the highest paid edge. I'll guarantee it right now. He will reset the market. Max Crosby will reset the market for edge. He will become the highest paid edge. He will be that contract will reflect a Raider for life type contract, so that everybody can just stop asking us, would you trade Max Crosby? Why in the hell would you trade Kobe Bryant? Right? You don't do that. You don't.
It's kind of like with Cleveland. Why would they trade Myles Garrett? Well, that's their chip, and cap space is real, and that's their chance to kind of get out of the hole with the whole Deshaun Watson thing. Now with the Raiders, why would they trade Max Crosby? That is a giant bargaining chip.
No,
especially with a new guy coming in.
Though. No, but DZ, to be fair, here's the difference. Max Crosby has never once wrote a letter or asked or talked on his podcast about leaving the Raiders. In fact,
but how long
he has it tattooed on his body, and he already said, I don't want to go back to Michigan. And he already said that I hate on every team other than my own. So Max isn't going anywhere, man.
That's fair. But there was like a few weeks where he was looking like, like,
no, you know what? I listened to his podcast. So Max, shout out to you and the Rush podcast with the boys. I listen to it every week, and all he was trying to say during that little snippet that the media tried to spin is he was saying he's just waiting to see what the changes will be.
Yeah, now, and he wants stability.
Yeah,
and that's probably the best change.
But I also saw the press conference in where John Spytek's talking to Max, and Pete Carroll's talking to Max, and I could already tell that Max knows this is about to become the next Legion of Boom again, right? So what does Pete Carroll do? He's like, Max wants stability. Hey, Tom, why don't we make sure we bring back good old Patrick Graham and Rob Leonard? And Rob Leonard was being asked to be a defensive coordinator in other teams, and the Raiders blocked that move. Patrick Graham, who does want to be a head coach at some point, he chooses to come back. They're both going to get paid higher, right? They both get to basically have a higher level of position. But more importantly, the word that Alex used, stability. Yeah. Because the most stable thing we've had is that defensive room. That's stable. The energy is stable, right? And all roads, I disagree. All roads does not travel through a quarterback for us. All roads travel through Max Crosby. And how Max Crosby delivers. What we need a quarterback to do, a la Trent Dilfer, is deliver the ball and not have it get turned over.
I think the growing narrative is with the Raiders, especially with this first year under Pete, is build that defense, run that ball.
Well, now, hold on. Now, DZ, check this out, right? Since you talked about running the ball, right? Okay. So then what else does Pete Carroll do? He's like, well, let me call someone that I know that just won the national championship, that has one of his best friends just got hired to be the head coach of UNLV, and Dan Mullen. Let me go ahead and get a hold of the New Hampshire Mafia guy, Chip Kelly. When I saw that, dude, I was fucking like, did that really just happen? Like, Chip Kelly's going to be the offensive coordinator? Jeez, man. I bet they're going to run the ball a lot on this thing, right? And they're going to get, and then here's the one that I kind of knew was already going to happen. I'm going to be going to the Huskies game opener, finally get to travel this year, Alex. So I'll get on a plane to go to Seattle to watch the first game of the Huskies this year because of my dear, he's like my father figure, basically, my dear mentor who's going to be taking us over there. We're going to get to see the Huskies play. But him and I were talking, and I was like, hey, since Bill Belichick's son's going to Carolina, do you think, when Pete Carroll got hired, I said, do you think his son from the Huskies will go? And he told me, he said, oh, no, he's leaving. He's going to go end up with Pete Carroll. And sure enough, Jed Fish even talked about it on the Rich Eisen show. He was like, oh, I love Pete Carroll, and he's great. So it was kind of already like, we already knew the writing was on the wall. And what was Brennan Carroll before? He was the offensive line coach for Pete during all those years, man. So we're like, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to be in sync.
Absolutely.
So The offense is going to take care of the offense, because the one thing I know Chip Kelly can do is be a really good offensive-minded person. Just take a look at what Ohio State did to Notre Dame.
Hang on, timeout. Ohio State was a bot team. So
True.
I don't think you guys want to base Chip off that Ohio State team.
No, DZ, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said it was a bot team, because you know who has the third highest salary cap in all of the NFL going into
the
Raiders
season? Do.
That's us.
Yes.
So we could buy everybody, dude.
Yeah, it's not a good free agent. It's not a good free agent class. So
all right,
pump the brakes, because we have the fifth most money, and we could jump to top 3 if we got rid of Pipkins and Bosa. And I'm not too excited, because I already looking at the free agent tracker. I'm like, damn, dude, it's pretty whack out there.
It's T. Higgins and Trey Smith.
Time out. Yeah. Remember, for us, DZ, is we're seeing the draft. All right, us, the Raiders, we're seeing the draft. We have 10 picks. 2 of them are in the 3rd round. We're going to get, I'm guessing we're going to get 2 running backs, if I'm being honest with you.
Are you guys going to get any comp picks for losing coaches by any chance?
No, we didn't get any comp picks for that. It would have been Patrick Graham if he would have gotten hired by the Jaguars, but that's another story for another day. No. But we have the 2 extra 6th-round picks because of Illuminor. And I'm forgetting the other player that left. So that's why we have 3 in the 6th. Anyway, though, my point being that this is a really talented draft class.
Hobbs?
Which is why
Hobbs is there still.
Which is why Cleveland, for example, I don't really think Cleveland's panicking that much if Myles Garrett wants to leave, because they're sitting there saying to themselves, well, we're going to get Abdul Carter anyways. You know?
Yeah.
So,
what position are they picking in? Are they top?
They're number 2. They're number 2. So they're basically waiting for the Titans to fuck it up. Because if I was the Titans, I would not be taking a quarterback. If I was the Titans, I'd take Abdul Carter and call it a day, right?
Yeah.
If I was taking a quarterback in this, it would be in the 2nd, 3rd round, 4th round. I would not.
Yeah, no, I agree with you,
round
dude.
I'm taking Dart.
I'm right there with you.
Do you guys take Will Howard? Bring him over from reunite him with his OC.
In the 5th, 6th round.
He probably will be. I mean,
yeah, probably.
Well, that's actually also good for the Raiders. Is there could be like, you guys could go like, look, we don't like any of these QBs. We could get one of these free agents, Sam Darnold, whoever, sign him for like a 3-year deal with like a void year at that 3rd year.
Yeah,
and then draft your future guy.
No, I understand, DZ, but honestly, man, I don't see Spytech looking at Sam Darnold. I don't see any of that. I see them really
keeping AOC.
You have to remember that Aiden O'Connell was working with Tom Brady's people, like his guys, right?
Okay.
So Aiden O'Connell still has I believe this is going to be his 3rd year. So that means we have 2 more years of a cheapie with him, right? And if we need to bridge anyone, then he's not.
That's probably the guy then.
But I think that the way the draft falls will let us know which direction they're going. Because also the reason why Shedeur Sanders keeps getting talked up for the Raiders is because Tom Brady was working with him. That's why, right? So, but what I also know is Tom Brady's not trying to fuck anything up. So since he had firsthand knowledge on how good or bad Shedeur could possibly handle a rookie year, he might not go that route, because I'll be honest with you, man, if somehow Mason Graham falls 6th or Abdul Carter, are you kidding me, dude? Those are generational players, man. Like,
especially with
on those guys.
The writing on the wall.
If you pass on them.
Yeah.
Kind of the writing on the wall with Tyree Wilson. So if you guys were to get like another elite pair with Crosby, would be nuts.
With Wilkins coming back.
Yeah. If for example, somebody, and I don't think
that's
this
a spicy meatball.
Yeah, but let's say somebody were to say, hey, yeah, sure, we would be interested in Tyree. And we were to say, okay, cool, we're trying to trade back up in the 1st round. So how about we give you Tyree in the 2nd, and then we go back up in the 1st? That's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Like, and again, one of the reasons why we have so much cap space also is we let a lot of our players play out their contract. So why was the Patrick Graham, Rob Leonard so important? Because now, instead of your Spillanes and your Nate Hobbs and everybody who was going to go to Coons, all of them were going to free agency. It's like, yeah, you could take the bigger money, or we can pay you comparably close.
I like
but
Spillane
you get
a
to
lot.
stay home and play with your coaches here in a city that already loves you. So we're going to get hometown discounts across the board with the defense to build basically Legion of Boom 2.3, 5.0 or whatever, 10.0, right? And now our whole offense is going to be basically run by Chip Kelly, Brendan Carroll, because those are our two biggest needs. So when you were saying this is a terrible free agency, across the board, I'll agree with you, DZ. But
No, because
for what we need, all we need guards. And you know who's available? Trey Smith.
Yeah, you're not getting him. He's coming to LA. Anyway,
okay. And also if we miss on Trey Smith, I'm gonna say it, guys. Mekhi Becton's looking pretty good to me.
Yeah.
I would, and you know what?
He's revitalized himself a little bit.
If anyone looks like a Raider, a 6'8", 380-pound monster at guard would and he's only 25 years old. Would be a pretty fun Raider to have in our team.
Kind of going along the lines you're saying about, because I know you guys have a ton of free agents, and so does my team, because we are in cap hell, and then so they signed a bunch of these guys on 1-year contracts. Harbaugh wants all those guys back, and they have the money to bring them all back, but that's never the case. Guys will leave and whatever. And me in free agency, other than on, and I'm not talking about the offensive side, but on defense, my priorities are bringing Khalil Mack and Elijah Molden. Like, those two guys need to come back. I'm like, just do whatever you can, keep Mack from retiring or going somewhere else. So like with you guys, I predicted, by the way, that you guys are keeping Patrick Graham. I was like, there's no reason to get rid of him. Keep him there.
And Rob Leonard is a big one too, DZ.
I don't know much about Rob, but I agree. I'm gonna go with that. So with you guys, you guys have a lot of free agents that were on that defense that I would say come back. And yeah, they'd probably take the hometown discount like you're talking about. I would keep a lot of those guys. Like, I'm a big fan of Spillane. I would love to have him. I know he's not great in coverage, but man,
it doesn't matter, dude. He's great.
He's a tackling machine.
He's a tackling machine.
And he wears a dark visor.
He doesn't suck at interceptions, by the way, guys. I'm just gonna throw that one out there too.
He's quiet.
What'd you say? What was that last part?
Oh, I said Spillane doesn't suck at interceptions.
I'm just saying he's not the. Yeah, I like him. I'm like, hey, but anyways. I digress.
Right. But again, like, so with that being said, I honestly believe, and I agree with what John Leon's saying, no QB at 6. I mean, again, unless Tom Brady knows more than what we see, dude, if Mason Graham falls to 6, I want you to just picture this idea in your head right now as a Charger fan. Okay. And you too, Alex, you know, we're going to have Max Crosby on one side, right? We're going to have possibly Clavon Chason and Kuntz rotating on the other side. We're going to have Christian Wilkins healthy inside and Mason fucking Graham. I mean, guys, like, so, I don't know about you, but our 4-man
your edges, and this will come back to bite me. They don't worry me. It's your interior that worries the hell out of me. That's what gives me nightmares, because our interior O-line is disgustingly bad. So I'm like, Wilkins, I'm like, God, he's a beast. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that nonsense.
Yeah. And to Adam Butler's credit, by the way, who was his teammate at Clemson, he had a really good year. And I think we're bringing him back for a hometown discount. Adam Butler did well to maybe, if Mason Graham is there, to maybe help facilitate.
This is going to be fun. We got a lot of time before now in the draft.
We'll see. It's going to be a wild off season, and I know I've said it multiple times, but you know, I truly believe next year the AFC West is going to just be an absolute bloodbath.
I mean, I can see it resembling the AFC North, kind of that style, what it was supposed to be. I could see it just getting even crazier. And I think the Bengals are going to get better too. So that's
the Bengals is going to have to get better, bro.
And then you got the Commanders. I think every free agent wants to go to the Commanders because they need defensive help, and they're going to be.
That's where I see Myles Garrett going. By the way, I see him going.
I predicted that too. That's where I think he ends up going. They pay him the bag too, probably.
Yeah.
And he's only 27, like Crosby.
No. That's the whole thing with Myles Garrett is he's already at 29 going on 30.
Oh,
versus Max Crosby's only 27 and has only played his 6th year.
Wait, he's 29?
Yeah.
I thought he was like 27, 28.
No,
that's
he's
why been around for a
frustrated
minute
with the Browns. His entire
he's
career
8 years.
has been
8 years with the Browns. All right, so we're gonna shut this. We're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, no, I I think.
No, Alex was saying, yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like you said, Angelo, exciting things happening with the Raiders, and I think me and DZ and probably Richie would even agree. I think they're making the smart coaching hires and bringing in the right people to right the ship, if you will, and get things on track. And just as a football fan, I'm excited to see kind of how they build the roster and do things, because I kind of get the sense that it's not gonna try to be this expedited shift. Like they're gonna be patient with it, and then next thing you know, oh shit, the Raiders are really good. They're really young.
What this forces the Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, they now are going, oh shit, like you got to continue to bring our A games. They got to keep evolving.
What I'll add to that is on today's press conferences, one of the key things that he said is, I'm going to focus on beating my division, because you have to beat your division in order to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that already says it to me right there. Like they don't give a shit about, like, they're going to use this year to practice how to beat
Jim
the Chargers.
Said. He said the same thing. Got to beat it. Got to win our division before anything else.
And look at the the change that happened with LA. Like look at the change that's happened with Denver bringing Peyton. Like it's just an exciting time to be an AFC West fan, even if that's the Chiefs fan and me talking too. But I think that about does it for tonight's show. Angelo, thank you for stepping in. Always great to have you on. Unfortunate Richie had to step away, so we couldn't go over the Broncos news. I'm just kidding. I don't think there was any, but
the one that I'll throw out there is that the Broncos had their executive that went to the Raiders, and it's Spytek's old buddy. I'll give you the name real quick, and then you can close it out. It's longtime exec Mark Theus. But basically he was the senior vice president over there. And by the way, to Richie, who's listening to this, that's us stealing your guy so that we know what's been going on there for the last 9 years.
Yeah. Just classic
underground marijuana operation.
Just the old bait and switch. But with that, guys, appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the Super Bowl. As always, go Chiefs, baby. But until next time, where the West Side is the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast